MitchCraft Online, come on in, join the talk, let's begin.
Welcome to MitchCraft Online. I'm your host, Mitch. If you followed MitchCraft Online for a while, you already know the vibe here. This is where ideas get challenged, assumptions get tested, and sometimes that uncomfortable question, those are the ones worth asking. Expect sharp commentary, a little sarcasm, and conversations that go deeper than the headlines because the most important discussions are really the comfortable ones. Let me start with a question. When something terrible happens in South Africa, a robbery, a break in, something serious, and somebody says, call the police, do you feel relief or do you feel hesitation? Because that hesitation, that tiny moment of doubt, might be one of the most revealing signs of a deeper problem in this country. Today, we're talking about something many South Africans feel but rarely say out loud: trust. More specifically, the growing crisis of trust between citizens and law enforcement. And before anybody jumps to conclusions, let me make something clear right from the start. This conversation is not anti police, it's pro accountability, because no country survives when trust collapses between law enforcement and the public. South Africa doesn't just have a crime problem, it has a trust problem. Crime statistics get discussed constantly. Politicians debate them, news panels dissect them, social media argues about them pretty much every week. But the deeper issue isn't just the crime itself, it's what happens to society when people begin losing faith in the systems meant to deal with crime. Over the past few years, allegations and arrests within SAPS have repeatedly made headlines. Officers accusing of accepting bribes, extortion schemes, internal investigations, and what's most alarming isn't that corruption exists, because corruption exists pretty much everywhere. The alarming part is that people are no longer surprised by it. When corruption stops shocking the public, it starts becoming normal. And once corruption becomes normal, that trust begins to erode quietly, slowly, one incident at a time. Whenever conversations like this happen, somebody inevitably says, yeah, it's just a few bad apples. And sure, every institution has a few bad actors, but the concern here goes beyond isolated incidents. There have been cases involving senior crime intelligence officials facing fraud and corruption investigations linked to irregular appointments and misuse of resources. Parliamentary oversight bodies have even raised concerns about officers remaining on duty while facing serious allegations. Think about the message that sends. Citizens are asked to trust a system that sometimes struggles to hold itself accountable, and once that perception settles into people's minds, something shifts. Corruption stops looking like an exception, it starts looking like procedure. Across the country, multiple cases have surfaced involving officers accused of demanding money from civilians or suspects, officers arrested for extorting traders, officials charged after allegedly requesting payments to influence cases, police members sentenced after bribes were taken to make dockets disappear. And corruption does something very dangerous. It reshapes behavior. People begin hesitating before reporting crimes because reporting crimes starts feeling less like asking for help and more like entering a negotiation. I recently heard a story that kind of stuck with me. A couple experienced a home invasion in the early hours of the morning. Armed attackers entered the home while they were asleep. They were restrained, threatened, and a significant amount of property was stolen. Yeah, the police were contacted, a case was opened, but about a week later, they received a phone call. Police claimed the stolen items had been recovered. Sure, sounds like good news, except there was a condition. They were told payment was required to get their own belongings back. When they refused and offered to collect the item themselves, communication suddenly stopped. Obviously shaken and unsure what to do next, they consulted a detective they trusted privately. And the advice I received was very chilling. They had two options: report the incident officially, or choose to walk away. Because the officers involved could and would retaliate if the complaint was pursued, not hypothetically, not theoretically. Retaliation could easily be disguised as legitimate police action. And of course, once the system turns against you, proving anything becomes almost impossible. So they chose silence. Not because they accepted corruption, but because survival felt safer than justice. And honestly, how many people listening right now have heard a version of that story? Here's another example. Someone goes out for a normal dinner date. Nothing unusual, just an ordinary evening, and they come back outside afterward and their car is gone. Later, police make contact. Good news, they say, the vehicle has been found. But the bad news, payment is required before it's returned. Again, the line between recovery and extortion becomes blurred. And when that line disappears, justice stops feeling like a right, it starts feeling transactional. Most police officers are probably trying to do their jobs honestly, and that distinction actually matters. But systems don't fail only because of individuals, they fail when accountability weakens. Analysts and oversight organizations have repeatedly warned that disciplinary systems sometimes struggle to consistently sanction misconduct, and every unresolved case sends a message. Rules are optional, power protects itself. Police legitimacy is fragile. Once public trust breaks, consequences ripple outward quickly. Witnesses stop cooperating, victims stop reporting crimes. Communities begin relying on self policing, and investigations become a lot harder. Corruption doesn't just steal money, it steals cooperation. And without cooperation, policing itself becomes far more difficult. Criticizing corruption is not an attack on law enforcement. In fact, honest officers suffer the most when corruption spreads, because corruption turns every uniform into a question mark. Every traffic stop becomes a suspicion. Every interaction becomes tension. Accountability doesn't weaken policing, it protects the officers doing their jobs properly. South Africans don't expect perfection. What people expect is fairness. They expect that when something terrible happens, calling the police won't create a second problem. Trust isn't rebuilt through speeches or statistics. Trust is rebuilt through consequence, through transparency, through accountability. Until then, many citizens quietly carry the same question: who do you call when the police meant to protect you become another risk? If this conversation resonated with you, share your thoughts respectfully. You can also visit MitchCraft.online if you want to share stories or experiences related to topics like this. And if you want more conversations like this one, make sure you follow so you don't miss future episodes. This is MitchCraft Online. Question everything, especially the things everyone else just accepts.
MitchCraft Online, come on in, join the talk, let's begin.